Welcome to Home Ec 365. I'm Molly Siegler. I'm a classically trained chef and part of our global culinary team at Whole Foods Market. Let's talk baking. Knowing how and when to swap an ingredient that's called for one you have on hand is a skill that will save you frantic trips to the grocery store and breathe new life into go-to recipes. You may even like your new creations better. After this class, you'll have the skills and knowledge to incorporate swaps into your everyday baking. You'll learn what common items can be used to replace called-for ingredients, swap-friendly recipes to suit everyone's taste buds, and ways to reinvent your favorite recipes to evolve your baking game. Let's dive in. These days, we've all been doing bigger grocery shops to last a week or two. And what happens when you do bigger shops? Sometimes you leave things out, or you didn't anticipate an emergency baking session. So what are you to do when you're craving your favorite chocolate chip cookies and you're butterless? Scrap the whole thing? Not a chance. These are my favorite go-to swaps to keep you stress-free in the kitchen. No buttermilk? Buttermilk is a liquid and it's acidic enough to react with baking soda, so regular milk just won't cut it. You can substitute 1 cup buttermilk for 1 cup yogurt. You want plain, unsweetened yogurt. If you only have Greek yogurt, just add a little bit of liquid so that it still gets that consistency. If you don't have yogurt, no problem. All you need to do is combine 1 tablespoon of distilled white vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, just something acidic, with enough milk to make 1 cup. You can use dairy milk or almond milk or oat milk. It just needs to be a plain milk so that you get that buttermilk vibe. No butter? Butter acts as a fat in recipes. It provides tenderness and often incorporates sugar. So if your recipe calls for melted butter, you can use safflower oil, which miraculously tastes a little bit like butter, or melted coconut oil, 1 for 1 for that butter swap. If you need, if the butter that's called for is softened and not melted, then you can use cold coconut oil, so it needs to be in this state. No honey? Honey is a liquid, but it mainly acts as a sweetener. If you only have granulated sugar on hand, you need to make a quick, simple syrup, just granulated sugar and hot water, so that you get that liquid-like quality as well as the sweetness. If you have agave or maple syrup, it's even easier. It's a 1 for 1 swap for honey, exact measurements. Agave can make things a little bit sweeter, but that's often nice. No brown sugar? Don't worry. You can combine granulated cane sugar with molasses to make brown sugar. If you don't have molasses, add maple syrup to the mix. It'll just be a little bit lighter in color. Pour it in and you'll adjust as needed, and then I recommend mixing with your hands. And while you're at it, really appreciate that sugary texture and treat yourself to a little self-care moment. Now that we've covered some basics, let's bring in our special guest, Joy Wilson, aka Joy the Baker, to show us how to put some of these swaps into action.
Thanks, Molly. Hi everyone, I'm Joy the Baker. If you don't follow me on Instagram, well, you totally should. I'll give you a minute, go follow me on Instagram. If you already do, you know how much I love to bake and how much I love to help my followers navigate ways to reinvent their own recipes into irresistible creations. In addition to some of the swaps that we outlined, I noticed that there are 2 ingredients that I'm asked about most when it comes to swapping: flour and eggs. Now, these 2 ingredients can be the foundation for baking, so if you find yourself with an empty bag of flour or not enough eggs to complete a recipe, you can totally panic. I get it, but I'm here with your swapping solutions. When it comes to using eggs as a binder, you can actually mimic them with flax seeds. You'll take 1 tablespoon of flax seeds and mix it with 3 tablespoons of warm water. Let the mixture sit for about 20 minutes, and the moisture will activate a lightly gelatinous quality which will help us mimic real eggs. I love using this swap in my vegan carrot and zucchini harvest muffins. Another great swap for this recipe is to swap applesauce for milk. A lot of people think of applesauce as just a sweetener, but it's great to swap when you need moisture in a recipe, and that's why we're using it in these muffins. Don't these look delicious? I've been seeing a trend in people proactively looking for alternative to traditional flour. It might be to reduce carbs or to adapt to a dietary restriction or just to play around in the kitchen. Almond flour is great for people experimenting with alternative flours for the first time. Made from ground almonds, this 365 by Whole Foods Market almond flour is gluten-free. It lends a moist texture and a really rich flavor to baked goods like cookies and pancakes. When using almond flour, recipes that have a combination of leaveners like baking powder and eggs works best. Crusts and cakes that don't use much flour are also great places to substitute. I love substituting almond flour into my jam tart. Just take a 1/4 cup of the almond flour and sub it for traditional flour and you're good to go. Today I'm going to take you through a recipe using almond flour that you might not expect. We're making cornbread. Cornbread is as versatile as it is delicious. This is one of those easy recipes that makes the transition from summer to fall really nicely. It's also one of my favorites. I love to make this recipe for an afternoon snack, or to make for the kids after school, or if you're having friends over for dinner, it's nice to serve on the side. So, this recipe comes together with things you probably already have in your kitchen. But, since today is all about swaps, we're going to make this recipe step by step without butter, without buttermilk, without granulated sugar, and without all-purpose flour. So let's get started. We'll start by adding parchment paper and lightly greasing our 9 by 9 inch square pan. In a medium bowl, we have our melted coconut oil in place of butter. To our coconut oil, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of maple syrup in place of granulated sugar. Instead of buttermilk, I'm adding a cup of almond milk with just a splash of apple cider vinegar. And the last thing into our wet ingredients is our flax eggs. So this is 2 tablespoons of flax and 6 tablespoons of warm water. Get it all in there and give it a light whisk. Be careful, you don't want any coconut oil to splash out. Once this is whisked together, you can set this aside for just a few moments. And we'll combine our dry ingredients. In a larger bowl, we'll add 1 1/4 cup of almond flour. To our almond flour, we're gonna add a few tablespoons of oat flour. And these 2 flours will replace all-purpose flour, as well as 1 1/2 tablespoons of baking powder. We'll add our salt. Now, cornbread wouldn't be cornbread without cornmeal, so we're gonna add a cup of cornmeal. Stir it all till it's very well combined. All right, now this is super easy. We're just gonna add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. And we'll use our spatula to fold it all together. You'll be able to see the cornmeal start to hydrate and the batter thicken up just a bit as you stir the wet ingredients into the dry. Keep stirring until it's all very well combined. There are no lumps. You want everything nice and smooth. Great, that's about it. And now make room for your baking pan. So we have our 9 by 9 inch square, greased and parchment papered baking pan, and I'm just gonna pour our cornbread mixture into the prepared pan. We want every bit. And we'll let this cornbread sit while I go preheat the oven. Once the oven is preheated, I'm gonna bake this for about 20 minutes or so. The best part is that this cornbread serves as a blank canvas to whatever kind of flavors you might want to add in. If you like more savory version, you could do rosemary and crumbled feta cheese. If you like more spice, you might like chili powder and cheddar cheese. That one's delicious. If you like more sweet stuff, you could do sliced strawberries and fresh blueberries. You could add sliced almonds, you could add dried cherries. There's a whole world of possibility. Today, I'm simply going to add 365 brand maple syrup to the top. Give that a little drizzle. Oh my God. Molly, I made this one for you.
I will never turn down a piece of cornbread. Thank you so much, Joy. And thank you for joining us and cooking with us today. We are so excited for you to bake up a storm using all these creative new swaps. Be sure to share your final creations with us using hashtag WFMHomeEc365. I can't wait to see you in our other classes.